Hello and welcome to the official HaytersTV Premier League Roundup Show. I'm your host, Aaron Goldstein, and today I'm joined by Lewis Byron and Aisha Galati as we review another packed weekend of Premier League action. We thought we were going to start with Arsenal versus Liverpool as two top teams went head-to-head in North London, but just a few hours ago, Manchester United have announced that they've parted ways with Erik Ten Hag. His United side lost in controversial fashion at the weekend thanks to yet another interesting VAR call, and little did he know it, but Erik Ten Hag would have one last rant as Manchester United manager.
The best team winning, and today there was clear and obvious, wasn't how the VAR worked. How they worked, how they run their process. And before the season, they explained the process of the VAR. And only when it's clear and obvious, then they should interfere. So what they didn't do against Spurs, where they should have done it, to interfere with the red card of Bruno. There was a wrong decision, and now they make, again, a wrong decision, interfering. And both has a big impact on the scores of the games.
We'll talk about the game itself in just a moment, but let's summarise the bigger picture. Had Man United won that game or got a draw, would Erik Ten Hag have been sacked today?
Probably not. I wouldn't have expected it, but I think it would have just prolonged what was going to happen eventually. So I think, he would have been sacked. It would have just been a few weeks later, I reckon.
100% prolonging the inevitable. He was gonna be on his way out at some point this season. The results just weren't coming, and it was only a matter of time.
It's a really bizarre thing to say though, because you're saying, it's always going to come at some point. Why haven't they just got rid of him earlier? Like, what kept him in the job?
Yeah, I mean, it's all a bit up in the air. I remember a few weeks ago he was saying, we're in this together. We spoke in the summer, and it seemed like they were going to give him a longer period of time, but I don't know. I expected him to be there for the rest of the season, but the last few weeks obviously shown that he was on his way out.
Yeah, I didn't think he would make it to the end of the season. I think we spoke about this a few weeks ago, actually, and he was on his way out in summer after the 8th place finish, and they were having discussions around who would be his replacement, which if you are in a job, regardless of whatever job that is, and you start hearing that they're recruiting for your replacement already when you're still in contract, that is just crazy. The players all knew that, all of the rest of it. And United won the FA Cup, beat City, amazing. But that was just one game. And that seemed to just give him so much favour, to give him that whole, just to prolong it.
I'm going to spin the narrative very quickly there, because yes, Manchester United versus Manchester City in the FA Cup final is technically one game. But he had to get to that one game. And on the way to that game, there was proper Manchester United vibes there. They beat Liverpool in one of the most enthralling matches in FA Cup history. They were then 3-0 up against Coventry, almost surrendered it to get to the final. They were crazy. How would you summarise his United tenure? Because in his time at Manchester United, the only two teams to win domestic trophies in England are Manchester City and Liverpool.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't want to underplay winning the FA Cup. It was huge. It was massive. And as a United fan who has been really wanting that for a long time, just to win something again, it was great. And beating your biggest rivals just makes that even better. And like you mentioned, along the way, beating your other biggest rival, Liverpool, amazing. But I think that Coventry game you mentioned, that almost epitomised everything that has been troublesome about United for a long time, in that on top, let it slip away and you're losing. And that was almost like what happened yesterday. And I know we'll come to the game, but Ten Hag's tenure itself is an interesting one, because he was brought on with such high hopes and almost reminiscent of all the other managers that have come and gone since Fergie. And I don't know. I just feel like he actually never had loads of favour with United fans. There was never a proper run where he was really, truly delivering results super consistently. And that FA Cup winning moment is what I will look back at his tenure and see that as a moment. But there was never that build-up of like, I really feel like this is going somewhere and I really feel there's a movement here. I just never really saw what the identity of United was meant to be under him.
You've touched on the fact that you are a United fan, so let's quickly take it away from the United perspective. Lewis, since Sir Alex Ferguson left United, would you rank Erik ten Hag as the best of the managers they've had, or was it still Mourinho?
No, I'd probably give it to him after the period he's had as well. I'm pretty sure he spent a longer time there, and he's had little patches, like you said. He's never really built that consistent run, and I feel like why the United fans maybe could get onto him a bit easier is just the way he's come across in press conferences. Sometimes he's come across like not very assertive, not a big presence. Sometimes in press conferences, he can be just wouldn't fill me with confidence if I was a United fan. I think United would have liked to get rid of him at the end of the season, as I think is widely known. But they're very aware that the next manager that comes in is going to have a difficult job. And if they get rid of a manager that's just won a trophy, the next manager struggles, then it's going to be eyes on the boys upstairs. Whereas if they give him a few more months and let the results almost sack him, then it's less on their shoulders.
This will not surprise anybody, but the only team to spend more than Manchester United since Erik ten Hag came to England is Chelsea. And a lot of the players that ten Hag brought to Manchester United were former talent of his at Ajax. Would you say that his players have let him down over the course of his Man United tenure?
I don't know. I feel like we spoke about this before, but I feel like whatever players he's signed, they've been really good at the clubs they've been brought from. But players seem to lose themselves when they get to United. I think it's just a combination of so many different things going wrong, the amount of eyeballs and scrutiny on the club. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, but that's probably what I think's happening. Yeah,
there was a bit of a theme in terms of the recruitment. There were the players who have done well under Ten Hag, and then also those players who have been good once upon a time, but are almost down, going off their peak. And that, I think, has been another problem. Players like Casemiro, who have just been nowhere near what they were at Real Madrid, etc. And I think that's a really dangerous trap to fall into as well. Man United feel like they need the big names, but look around at the other big clubs and the recruitment they've done, and it's just been so much better. And I think that is a huge problem. But I agree, it's like, Ten Hag is ultimately the one who has to wear all of this. But there's the players, and go back to the game yesterday. Ten Hag can't teach Dalot not to miss that chance. He's got him in. Ten Hag's got his team into that scoring position, and then they're not finishing it off. And the players have to take huge responsibility as well. But as with anything in football, the manager, it always ends with the manager. The owners should also be held accountable. They should be speaking on this. Why are we doing so badly? But yeah, it's always going to sit with the manager. That's just the way football is.
I have a weird question to ask. Erik ten Hag, has he now got the Man United manager curse? Is the Man United job a poison chalice? You look at Mourinho, the jobs he gets next with Tottenham, Fenerbahce. It's not as big as stature as Manchester United. David Moyes never fully recovered, although he did win the Conference League with West Ham afterwards. Where do you think we'll see Erik ten Hag back in a big job anytime soon?
I'd expect him to, yeah. I don't think there's probably one club in the world that's bigger than Manchester United, and that's Real Madrid. So I don't think managers can necessarily go a step up after Manchester United. So I'd expect him to manage. I'd expect him to actually do well wherever he goes.
And who is going to be the next Manchester United manager, Aisha?
Oh, the $1 million question. Well, Ruud van Nistelrooy, they have said, is going to be interim. I see him potentially taking it to the end of the season. In an almost Ollie-esque, dare I say. Yeah. But yeah, a bit of a trial. Let's see how he gets on. It's a tricky one. Like, coming in midway through the season, it's never easy because you want to obviously give them a bit of time, etc. I think he's been there, he's seen it, obviously got a lot of respect at that club. I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. Huge other names being linked. Xavi, I saw Michael Carrick being mentioned as well. I don't know whether he'd leave his sort of current post, but anyway, yeah, I mean, who knows who it might be.
Yeah, I'd like to see Gareth Southgate go. I think he's made for that job. Like, just his temperament, the way he carries himself, he's very calm. I feel like he'd be good. I feel like he'd do well at United.
You can see him in that famous Manchester United suit with the emblem crest on
his
his
chest. Would he bring the waistcoat to Man United?
Bring it back.
We'd love to see that at Old Trafford. But also, people have got to remember that Ruud van Nistelrooy they're not just throwing a former club legend into the mix. He has managed at the top level before. He's won a trophy in the Netherlands. So it'll be interesting to see how he does do. You saw Xavi's wife. I don't know if you saw, she posted an Instagram story with her son and Xavi, and the son's wearing a Manchester United kit.
No way.
Wow, there you go.
We will see. Let's quickly cover the game because Ten Hag will feel very hard done by that VAR call. Is there any part of you that can see why the referee has given a penalty to West Ham in the last moment of the game?
The only thing is when you slow it down, as they did when he went over and checked the VAR, is as contact is made, the attacker's leg does move a bit after the contact. But this is what the problem is with slowing down a 2-3 second clip. It can mislead you. I don't think it was a penalty at all, and I think he's got every right to be angry with VAR.
Yeah, VAR. Yeah, it was wrong. It was the wrong decision for sure.
Shock.
But yeah. I think the thing that makes it shocking is we were happy to accept human error before, I think. But when you're being told that this is clear and obvious, which is what, they've apparently raised the bar for the clear and obvious this season, to send him over to the screen for that, it's mad. And I think the referee should do better. The on-field referee should do better at standing their ground and thinking, no, I agree with my original decision. But in fairness, I get why they don't. There's a lot of pressure as soon as you're told to go over to that monitor. And I think that the buck has to stop with the actual VAR referee. It's appalling. And I mean, is what it is. Like, United should have put away all the chances they had in the first half. And this is the price you pay for it. And in this case, a huge price for Ten Hag. But yeah.
We'll definitely come on to referees VAR later on in the show. But you mentioned the words human error. And what is it? Why can Manchester United football players not kick a football into a goal? Is that the biggest issue that whoever's next, be that Van Nistelrooy, be that Xavi, Southgate, whoever it is, has got to fix? Aisha, take it away.
Yeah, for sure. They need to score goals. Huge problem. I think there's a lot of rumours, etc., saying that Ten Hag had lost the dressing room, and understandably so. Like what we mentioned, that he knew, people kind of knew he was on his way out at some point. It was inevitable. It's just that's a tricky situation to be in. 600 million, I believe he had, in transfers. So money wasn't the problem. It's the biggest problem is going to be a mentality thing, because I think Manchester United players have been coasting a little bit. When you know that your manager is under pressure, that immediately alleviates the pressure from you, because you know that with a loss, people aren't going to be saying, oh, you're rubbish. They're going to be going, what's wrong with Manchester United? It's the whole thing that's broken. The whole thing needs fixing. So it is really about rebuilding it, like properly rebuilding it. Stop bringing in all these has-been players. Stop bringing in the wrong, to some extent, the managers that they're sort of looking at, like, it doesn't need to be a huge name or whatever. I think just digging deeper, getting an understanding, a manager that connects with the players and actually can bring the best out of them, the young players especially. Ahmad, he was doing great things last season, and he's barely been given a shot this year, and he's probably looking around where he can move to, like all the rest of it. There's just so much that's wrong with it. I don't know. I can't put my finger on something. It's not the thing. It's not the fact that there's no money available. I really think it is a human connection and mentality problem.
Fair enough. Well, remember, if you have any Man United questions or comments, please do get them coming in. We will get through to them very shortly. But let's go on to the biggest game of the weekend on paper. Two of the title favourites went head-to-head in North London as Arsenal were held by Liverpool. It is early days, but is the title already out of Arsenal's hands?
5 points now to City. I mean, it's only 9 games in.
Yeah.
How relevant is that gap at the moment?
Well, you don't want to be in that position. You want to be 5 points ahead, but this is where we are. And again, I think the team it's alive. The team wants it. I feel it every single day. The players that cannot play, they're upset that they are not playing. The ones that they get injured, the ones that they are there and they're in a good moment. So things will turn up, and we're gonna in a better place. But we are certainly there.
Judging on Arsenal's performances and injury record and suspension record this season, is the title possible?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, if you look around at their competition, Man City haven't looked as convincing in their wins. I know they're obviously top of the table now. Liverpool, again, they been dropping points against. They dropped points against Arsenal. They've had an easier run, I'd say, than Arsenal and Man City. So, yeah, 100%, they've still got a chance.
Definitely. I think,
one word answer is as simple as that.
I know, seriously. I mean, Man City aren't dominating by any stretch of the imagination. Arsenal have been a little bit unlucky, but they've been playing really well with huge injuries. Lose the red cards from the game, lose the injuries. Those set pieces, another amazing set piece routine yesterday, Mourinho's goal. It's almost becoming like this, just a feature of such a big part of Arsenal's game. And Saka back now as well, and just firing from all cylinders.
What did you guys make of Arsenal's performance yesterday?
I was actually very impressed. Of course, we missed Saliba and Odegaard, two of our best players. And I thought we adjusted really well. Ben White, I thought was excellent at centre-back. Partey, I thought was unbelievable at right-back for most of the game. I was really impressed. I'm just not sure if we're getting into a bit of a habit now with Arsenal of when we go up in a game, instead of risking it, I suppose, and making it 2-3-4, we sort of sit back and try and soak the pressure because we know we can do that side of the game now. It can be seen a bit negative. I think we should still do that in some games, but some games I'd like to see us go like we used to, go and try and put teams to bed 2-3 or 4-0.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Arsenal definitely looked the stronger side in the first half, but just weren't able to really take advantage of that. And then when Liverpool did come back, and Liverpool was so much better in that second half, a few changes from Slot and even just Trent coming a bit more into midfield, and I just think Arsenal didn't quite know how to continue dominating, and they really just needed to.
I don't know whether I watch a different game. So how I saw the Arsenal-Liverpool game yesterday, I thought Arsenal started off very sloppy. I thought they didn't look fantastic. There was the Mourinho simple pass, couldn't control it. Salah has a shot, and obviously doesn't hit the back of the net, but Arsenal looked a little bit nervy. Then there was a moment where Mourinho plucked the ball out of the air in the Liverpool box, and from that moment, his confidence was clearly sky high. He's like, I've just done something unreal in a Premier League match. I'm on Sky. Everyone's watching me today. And as soon as he raised his levels, Arsenal raised their levels. Arsenal then scored before the end of the half and went into half time. Definitely the better team. As soon as Gabriel was injured and went off the pitch, Arsenal forevermore in that match looked like a bottom half team that was somehow winning in a game against a top team, and they didn't know what to do. The drop in quality when Arsenal lose a player is really, really worrying. When Arsenal have lost Martin Odegaard, there isn't a number 10 that comes into the team and takes his place. Arsenal now have had Calafiori, Timber, we've had White, now Gabriel, all of these players getting injured. Lewis, do Arsenal have an injury crisis? Is it overplaying? Is it bad luck?
I don't think, listen, we've got a lot of injuries. Whether you can call it a crisis or not, I'm not too sure. I don't think it's just an Arsenal thing, though. I feel like all teams these days, especially in the Premier League, especially the teams that are playing in Europe as well, because of the extra demands with the extra games they're playing, because these days, the demands they put on themselves physically, pushing themselves to the limit in the gym, on the pitch, I think it's just going to always produce more injuries. I just think the fact that it's happened to a few of Arsenal's key players puts more of a spotlight on it and makes you look at it a bit more and actually dig deeper. I don't think it's just an Arsenal thing. I think this is something that happens in football and you have to learn how to deal with it.
Can I agree with you and also disagree with you very quickly? I think in defence, Arsenal have been very unlucky because Arsenal, I mean, everyone was laughing over the summer that Arteta was spending more on defenders than anybody in the history of football ever. And Arsenal, yes, if you look at Arsenal's defensive injuries, it's a bit unlucky. It's a bit of, teams get injuries. But would you not say that Arteta has left the Arsenal squad very thin? Odegaard in particular, that's the big one, where the drop in quality from Odegaard, there's no Smith Rowe, he's gone. There's no Fabio Vieira, he's gone.
I think you're being harsh. I've been very impressed with how, when Odegaard's come out of the team, we've sort of played Trossard in and around that area, and Havertz and Trossard have sort of rotated in and out. We've almost got a box with Partey and Rice, and now Mourinho to come in. I think he's done very well.
Yeah, no, I think, you like to go on about the Arsenal injuries quite a lot, I think. And like Lewis says, every team is affected by injuries. I think there's also a thing to be said. You said, as soon as that injury happened, Arsenal were off the pace. And that's again, a mentality thing. You think, oh, he's so good. What are we going to do without him? And it's like the fans feel like that as well. You know, you think that Arsenal's chances of winning the league are worsened because of all these injuries. And actually, I would say back to that, I think Arsenal have developed a really strong squad and a good team, and they can manage in and around these injuries.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have developed. You were moaning about the squad a little bit. I actually think our squad's good. I do. Before the game, I wasn't worried about, we're going into Liverpool with a few injuries down. I thought our team was very good and good enough to win. I see a change in the game when Gabriel come off, of course. Not necessarily with the mentality, but the drop in level from Gabriel to Kiwior is, you can see a clear drop. And I do think he was partly at fault for the goal where Salah's gone through. He sort of got caught in no man's land with Trent's ball over the top, and he never really committed, and it gave Salah the space to go through.
I do think it's a mentality thing from the players themselves and the fans, because you go back to 2 years ago when William Saliba got injured and Rob Holding steps up, and the drop from William Saliba to Rob Holding, with no disrespect to Rob Holding, was so immense that it did cost Arsenal a title. And then you see it yesterday. I do think Arsenal have a very, very good starting 11. I think Arsenal's starting 11 is probably the best in the Premier League, and I'll say that with chest.
Better than City?
Better than City. I think Arsenal could beat any team on their day with their starting 11. I just think over the course of 9 months, Arsenal's squad, unfortunately, isn't going to take them down to the wire. However, before the season started, everyone thought Arsenal were going to be the team taking City to the wire. Looks like it's going to be Liverpool. We're over a quarter of the way through the season, and Liverpool are back competing for the top prize. Arne Slot was delighted with his team's performance, but most importantly, their mentality.
You also take belief from winning away at Wolves or winning away at Crystal Palace in the way we did. So you especially if you get a result, you always take the positives from this. And last week we had to defend really hard to take the 2-1 lead, to keep the 2-1 lead. And today we had to fight really hard to fight ourselves back into the game. And that shows for me a great mentality, because I think most Arsenal fans at halftime would have felt, this will probably lead to a win for us. And
were Liverpool lucky at all yesterday to play an Arsenal team without their captain, without their best centre back, who was obviously suspended?
I think maybe where the luck come in was again when Gabriel come off, because that's both of our centre backs then out of the game, are two of our best players. Before the game, I don't think you can put it onto Liverpool being lucky that they've faced us at this time. I mean, they don't have Alisson, who's probably one of their most important players.
Yeah, I agree. I think is what it is on that front. I think it was a really tightly contested match, and actually, like, both teams would have gone into that match feeling like they could have won, and both will be happy with the point. Yeah,
completely fair enough. Anyone impress you in particular?
I thought Saka played well coming back, and I was very impressed with Partey at right back, because I was worried going into that game how he would fare against Luis Diaz, but he actually, I think there was one time Diaz got in behind him. Other than that, he sort of had him on lock, so I was very impressed.
As much as it pains me to shine a light on some Liverpool players who were impressive, Salah scoring right place, right time, as he just always is in the Premier League.
He's quite good at football, man.
He's pretty good, yeah. Who'd have thought? And I thought Trent was great, especially in that second half. He moved a bit more into midfield and really was instrumental in the goals. And I thought he was great. And also Liverpool's defence, like, shout out to the defending this season. I think they'd only conceded 3 goals before yesterday, so 5 now in 9, which is, I mean, pretty good going. And I think Arne Slot has been brilliant. You know, how do you follow the footsteps in Klopp? Well, here you go. Lewis
looks like a 4-year-old who's got their hand up telling their teacher they need a wee.
Smoke coming out of his ears.
No, I thought Trent, first half, I thought he was poor, very poor. And I thought Trent, the fact he made probably 2 or 3 good passes that were over 30 yards, it makes everyone forget about the rest of the game he had. I don't know. I wasn't that impressed.
Defending's never been a strong point, let's be honest.
But even on the ball in the first, I thought he was sloppy. Like, every time he'd get the ball, he'd look for that pass, sometimes when it wasn't on, and it obviously wasn't on.
2 good teams, but let's talk about what everybody really wants to talk about, the refs. Van Dijk, lucky to escape any form of punishment very early on in that game.
Yeah, at least a yellow. I don't get how the refs not give anything for that. Or he didn't even give a free kick, did he?
Oh, I can't
I
remember.
think he did give a free
Did
kick.
it? But
yeah. This is your Arsenal memories are a bit blurred, I
But
think. There.
he's kicked out clearly him twice. How the ref can't give a yellow for that at least? I don't understand. That baffles me.
Yeah, I agree. It's a yellow card. It's not a red card, but I get your point. It's a different game if Van Dijk's on a yellow card from early on. But there's no agenda.
As you mentioned, Lewis is an Arsenal fan as well. So let's get your opinion on the Arsenal third goal, the goal that definitely should have stood. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? The whistle had blown, therefore you can't go to check it on VAR. The whistle should not have blown because there wasn't a foul. But these things happen. Like they do.
Happen, but they happen a lot to a certain football club that play at the Emirates Stadium.
Yeah, well...
I just don't want Arsenal and Arsenal fans to get in the habit of always blaming something else when we're not winning games. For example, the injuries or the refs. Because if you're going to win a Premier League, you have to be able to overcome that. You can't be looking at any little excuse to try and make yourselves feel better or justify a reason why you're not winning.
Well, this conversation is going to annoy me, so let's move. Quick note, it does look like we're about to have our first Premier League Ballon d'Or winner since 2008. Do you agree with Rodri being the best player in the world over the last year?
Absolutely, yeah. I was very happy when I heard that he's likely to be winning it. Because I think he's been unbelievable. I think he's the most important player in that City side, and that's becoming more evident since he's actually been out of the team this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a very worthy winner, and it seems to be a really lovely guy as well. So good for you, Rodri.
Except for that tackle on Martin Odegaard. Cristiano Ronaldo was the last player playing in the Premier League to win the Ballon d'Or. That was back in 2008. Do you think since then, it's been 16 years, should any Premier League players have won it?
Not above Messi, no.
I think there's definitely an argument that plenty of players could have won it had there not been this ridiculous dominance of Ronaldo and Messi featuring Modric.
I think Virgil van Dijk was absolutely robbed in 2019. I feel really bad for him. I think defenders are really overlooked. Well, at least he's won the Premier League and the Champions League. He'll survive.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, but it's a nice thing that Rodri's winning. You know, he's not your sort of typical Ballon d'Or winner necessarily, and I think there was a lot of said about it. You know, he used to be seen as this sort of holding midfielder, and now people just talk about him as a midfielder and winning the Ballon d'Or. Good for him.
Let's talk about a player that might actually go on to win the Ballon d'Or in the future. Plays for Chelsea. They've been absolutely brilliant this season. They're just a point behind those in the top four. Cole Palmer continued to, he's continued from last season's fine form into this one, drawing comparisons to former Chelsea legend Gianfranco Zola.
This is exactly what I was telling to you, that I don't think Cole knows Gianfranco. Because, but they are, to be honest, they are quite similar in terms of quality, in terms of see things that the rest they don't see. And then, I'm from Italy, so I know Gianfranco quite well.
I mean, that's very flattering to Cole, or is it getting more flattering for Gianfranco to be compared with each other?
No, but I don't think that we can compare both. The only thing I can say that both they are, Gianfranco was, and Cole is still quality player.
Cole Palmer, best player in the Premier League this season?
This season, without a doubt, yeah. By some way, I think he's. He's just, you can tell he's just in that sort of flow state where he's probably not thinking too much when he's on the pitch. It's all so natural.
He thinks at all.
But when you're playing so well, you're not thinking too much. It's all reactionary. It's so natural and it's coming so easy. You only start thinking when things start going wrong and you're trying to replicate how you're doing the good stuff.
Oh yeah, everything good from Chelsea this season comes through Cole Palmer. He is on fire and keep pushing. You're only 4 goals off Haaland in the Golden Boot chase.
It's crazy. And that pass yesterday was Martin Odegaard-esque, if I say so myself.
Yeah, but that's what makes it so impressive, right? Haaland's just an out-and-out goal scorer and Cole Palmer's doing absolutely everything in this Chelsea team. Literally everything. Passing, scoring, he's
Jokes aside, can Cole Palmer win the Ballon d'Or at some point?
100%. 100%.
Why not?
If he maintains his form, which to me, I think you can sometimes tell when a player's not at that level, but on really, really good form. And for me, Cole Palmer's at that level. It's not just a little purple patch. I think he can maintain it, and I reckon he's got a really good shout.
Well, Chelsea fans will love that last few moments of conversation, and they'll love this one even more. Tottenham have been extremely inconsistent in this season's opening weeks. They travelled to Selhurst Park and became the first team to play Crystal Palace this season and leave with absolutely nothing.
Look, it wasn't. It was just a game that turned into, which wasn't a surprise, a bit of a battle and a lot of stops, standing around, and we didn't deal with that really well at all. We didn't sort of get to grips with just the nature of what was transpiring out there, and like I said, turned a bit of a battle, and they dealt with it better than we did.
Why do Tottenham fluctuate so much? Sometimes they're brilliant, sometimes they're terrible, and sometimes it's even in the same game.
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons. One, I think the level of their players isn't as high as people think to produce high quality performances consistently. And I also think their style of football is hard to maintain, especially throughout 90 minutes and throughout a season. They seem to me, when they lose the ball, very unstructured when they're defending. And probably 60, 70% of the players are actually defending and trying to get back with some intensity and structure. Whereas a prime example, you look at Arsenal, if they lose the ball, the whole 11 are trying to sprint in to get back with intensity and with structure. And I don't see that from Tottenham.
Yeah, they were quite sloppy, I thought, at the weekend. And that's, really different to how we've been speaking about them in other weeks. I would also actually say, though, that the same can almost be said for Palace a little bit. And they've had real moments of brilliance this season. And I would maybe say unlucky to have, only just got their first win. But yeah, they're another team that I think fluctuate in consistency. But I think the difference is Spurs have just been doing that a little bit better.
Yeah, we'll come on to Palace in just a moment. But very quickly, Mickey van der Ven, lucky to escape a red?
Yeah, I wouldn't moan either way. I think he's the last man, okay, but he is closer to the ball even after the challenge than the previous ones we've seen in previous weeks, and the ball is going towards the corner flag. So last man, yes, but denying a clear and obvious goal scoring opportunities, definitely no.
Yeah, I'd probably say red card just on consistency.
Mate. Well, anyway, that result took Crystal Palace out of the bottom three and relieved some of the pressure on Palace boss Oliver Glasner.
Comfortable with my job, so we're always very close to my sporting director and to my chairman, and so I wasn't really concerned about my job, and I think all our performances were mentioned okay, but maybe we missed a little bit thing what we showed today. Yeah, we showed this courage, we showed the intensity, we showed the bravery, how we pressed them, the intensity. Yeah, and maybe this was what we were a little bit missing.
Lewis, you know Crystal Palace very well, club you were at since you were 8 years old. Is that the kind of win that kickstarts the season?
Yeah, absolutely it can. After not winning a game before, I think it was eight games, the training ground, the morale on the team can be, a dark place. And getting that win will just give Palace, the whole club, some reassurance that their level's not miles off it, their level's not in the relegation, and they can beat a top informed team like Tottenham. And going into training Monday morning, there'll be a massive boost within the whole club, the whole training ground.
One thing I'll just quickly ask you before we go on to questions. Mateta came back in the side and Nketiah was dropped. I thought we might see this season some Mateta, both of them together. Do you think Glasner will be able to incorporate the two of them together?
I don't think so. I don't like either of them playing away from the number 9 position, a lone striker. So I think it will have to be one or the other. I think as a centre-back, Mateta will probably be... I'll be fearing Mateta more if I was coming up against him as a centre-back because he's a bit more awkward, he's a bit stronger. But I do think the better footballer, the better finisher is Eddie Nketiah. Although he might not pose as scary a threat, I'd like to see him get some game time.
Aisha, any questions coming in? Anything from Twitter?
Yes, there's a lot of reaction to the Ten Hag news. We've got a question from Double G Sun saying, what went wrong for Ten Hag? If you had to say, give me one thing.
I said what went right. In all honesty, I think sometimes it's over-reliance on what you know. He's basically thought, oh, well, these players have worked for me at Ajax. they're not going to work in the Premier League. Look at Anthony.
Mm.
I mean, also, I've got some friends in the Netherlands, and everyone says they knew Anthony was never going to work in the Premier League. But then Onana, De Ligt, it's so heavily over-reliant on what he knew in another system, in another league. That's where he went wrong for me.
Yeah, I think it's one of the hardest jobs in the world. So where it went wrong, I feel like 99% of managers would have the same outcome that Ten Hag had in terms of getting sacked like after a couple of years, because it's such a tough job. And it's got into the period where, again, so much eyeballs and scrutiny on United, as well as the teams around in the Premier League. Everyone's raising their game. You know, you can't slip off 1%.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't get sacked in football these days as a manager? It's actually the it's the odd case when you don't. We've got a Jose shout from Gaz Davies on YouTube. United fan here. Ten Hag could have stayed 10 years and still not understood Premier League football. He's a cup game manager hoping for individual moments to win games. No idea who I'd like for the job. Jose ?
Jose back.
Thoughts?
I don't think Jose Mourinho wants any part of that at all. He's tried his best. He'd done, supposedly, what's the most impressive time in his career, I think he said, or one of the most.
Yeah, he did very well to keep United up and in the battle at the top of the table. But no, Jose Mourinho, we will not see Jose Mourinho back at Manchester United unless he's in the dugouts for someone else.
Did you see that clip last week ahead of the United Fenerbahce game? And he said if City do end up, losing their medal from that year, he's like, I want my medal and I want my bonus. It's the most Mourinho clip I've ever seen. I absolutely loved it.
Completely. Well, if anyone has any more questions, please do get them in. We will come back to them at the end of the show. But we still haven't got round to the champions. Manchester City remain top of the pile and unbeaten after a 1-0 win against Southampton. Erling Haaland back on the score sheet for the first time in 4 matches. It felt like forever. But Pep Guardiola is aware that his side have struggled a little more than usual this year.
Top, but it's not the point. It's just what happened today. Aston Villa dropped points and Brighton dropped points because it's so difficult. We won in Wolves in 94-95. Today you get chances, so we could have scored 2, 3 or 4. The expecting goals is much higher. But I had to admit that today it was so demanding game for us. Really demanding game.
So they may be top. Why are City failing to dismantle teams this season?
I think, of course, it's really hard to maintain the levels they have. They've had some injuries to key players, like we've touched on, the same as Arsenal. I also think other teams, lower teams in the Premier League, are becoming better at having very good patches in games, 30 minutes. Their levels raising, maybe not as consistently, but the levels definitely raising. I thought Southampton were excellent at times, playing out, breaking City's press. And I think once you break City's press, they're quite open at the back. So, yeah, it's the levels raised. The levels being raised from every other team. And if City don't keep raising their level, then they're gonna find it harder.
Yeah, I think City just always find a way. It doesn't really matter that you're not absolutely dismantling teams when you're going to find a way. 32 games unbeaten in the Premier League. These last minute winners, etc. It's just the City way. They just know how to score and when to score, and who cares if you're knocking 4 past a team or 1 past a team if it's got the same outcome.
Gun to your head, you've got to put your life savings on it. Who wins the title this year, Lewis?
Man City.
Yeah, City.
Fair enough.
Yourself?
Yeah, I'll go Man City as well. I think obviously the loss of Rodri is another reason why City aren't controlling and feeling that every time they go forward that there's that little fear maybe in front of goal, because if you miss, we're going to have to defend on the counter, and we haven't got Rodri to crab around and pick it up and restart. And I do think that somewhat comes into it. And I do think in just a couple of weeks' time, City will either entirely drop off or start sweeping teams aside. It'll be one or the other. But do you know who has really been fun to watch this season? Brentford. I think they have been the most entertaining team we've ever seen in the Premier League. We're 9 games in, 18 goals scored, 18 goals conceded. They're up in the top 3 for most goals scored, up in the top 4 for most goals conceded. Are they the most entertaining team we've ever seen?
Ever seen this season? I'll give it to them. Not ever seen, I'm not too sure. But off the top of my head, I can't think of too many more that, I actually enjoy watching at the moment. Because like you said, they're just so much energy all over the pitch. which creates probably not what the Brentford club want to see. You know, they're not very secure games, like you said, conceding a lot, scoring a lot, but definitely fun to watch.
Yeah, they've been brilliant, haven't they? That match at the weekend. Who would have thought that Brentford Ipswich should be first on Match of the Day on Saturday night? But there you go. Yeah, they even just like all the early goals they've been scoring this season, and they've been great. I mean, love Thomas Frank and everything about him. So yeah, long may that continue. And also shout out to Brian Mbeumo as well. 8 goals, I think. So yes, only Haaland beating him currently in the Golden Boot race.
Such vibes, Brentford. And I have to say, a massive shout out. And it was unfortunate for Harry Clarke, who had probably the world's worst Premier League debut. Can you think of a player who's ever had a worse debut? Gave away a penalty, scored an own goal, got a red card. Hopefully more to come from him over the rest of the season. It can't get worse. Chris Wood still on the Golden Boot charge. Brighton surrendered a 2-goal advantage in the dying moments against Wolves. Bournemouth left it late to take a point off Villa, as did Everton against Fulham. It was a great weekend of Premier League action. What caught your eye the most?
Danny Welbeck caught my eye, actually, because it was only last week he went off with a bad injury and he's been on fine goal-scoring form, and then all of a sudden I see he's back in the team, and what pops up first on Sky Sports News, I see he scored again. So he just seems in unbelievable form at the, probably, I don't want to say back end of his career, but it's certainly not the start or the middle.
Yes, in other words, it is the back end of his career.
But yeah, so I'm very happy to see that. And I was actually very surprised that he was playing.
Yeah, shout out to Welbeck. And you mentioned Chris Wood too, 2 strikers who, yeah, not early on in their careers, but actually really killing it and doing exactly what they've been brought in to do. And yeah, I think the other thing that caught my eye was Wolves, because to fight that hard when you're 2-0 down, and it's just I think it shows a lot about the fight and them really caring about the manager. It's maybe something that was lacking at United, dare I say. But yeah, I think also on the flip side of that, Brighton were foolish to lose their heads, to lose that game. And this, you've got to just shut up shop. How do you lose that game?
Entirely. It's the Premier League. Anything can happen. That's why we love it. Before we wrap up, any other questions? More on United, more on Arsenal. What have we got?
We have indeed. We have comments saying, well, we've already touched on who do you think will be the best replacement for United, but if I had to push you for an answer, who would you say?
I personally would like to see Graham Potter.
Okay.
Been out of job for too long. He might get eaten alive, but I mean, I don't think he was given long enough at Chelsea. I think he did a top job at Brighton. People forget how brilliant he was at Ostertons before Brighton as well. That is a guy that he understands football. He lives for football. He'd be a good manager.
And you?
Yeah, I would like to see Gareth Southgate.
Okay.
I would like to see Gareth Southgate.
Yeah, that would be great. Get a British manager in. We've also got a comment from Zaraki saying the English Pele, and I think that is in response to Danny Welbeck. So there you go.
the English Pele.
I'd quite like to see
Never
Danny
too
Welbeck.
late.
Danny Welbeck with a shout to be in the next England squad. I don't know if he's retired or formally announced his retirement from international football. Settled, you say?
No, Danny Welbeck, like, he's doing amazing, and like, fair play to his form this season. But there's 3-4 strikers who are clearly ahead of him, I think, in ability and form.
3,
yeah.
Kane, Watkins, and who?
I would say Tony.
So he's playing in Saudi Arabia. Give it a rest.
Doesn't rule you out.
You're going to Saudi Arabia, in my opinion. You're saying, I'm done. I'm out of here. I want the paycheck.
Solanke.
Goodbye. So, come on, have a day off. I mean, in terms of who's the better player, Solanke. In terms of who's having the better season, who deserves the squad on merit, Danny Welbeck. What a player! What a man! That's all for this weekend. There's Carabao Cup action to dive into this week, and you can follow a lot of the action behind the scenes access on the Haters YouTube channel and